What up guys, welcome back to another tutorial of Python, and in this tutorial we are going to learn about function arguments. Okay, let's start with a function which is print name, and we are going to take three parameters: person1, person2, person3, and we are going to give colon, and right now we are going to print out the values of these three argument, which is print, and we are going to say person1, which is person1, and we are going to say person2 is person2, and we are going to say person3 is person3. Okay guys, so we have actually defined the function here. We want to call it, so as we know before, we can call it by putting the values of instead of the parameters. We will say person1 is John, person2 is Jane, Jane, and the person3 is it can be like my name, Ohit. So previously, into the previous tutorials, we learned about integer format of the function arguments. Right now we are watching some string arguments, so you can actually put any kind of format, string, boolean, according to your own wish. Right now, if we run this program, what happens? Python main.py, and you can see that it's printing out the values: John in the place of person1, Jane in the place of person2, Ohit in the place of person3. So you can actually see simply something like that. If we miss out any of the value right now, what happens? It will print an error. It's saying that missing and one required positional arguments. Okay, right now I will say this, all of the function arguments are positional arguments because these are not mutable, or these are not defined here. These are not initialized, so this can be of any value. So these are positional argument or default argument. Just memorize it for the sake of the time now. We will better understand it later on. There are another type of function arguments which is called non-default argument or keyword arguments. So keyword arguments are those which you actually initialize the value. So I will say Jane here. I will delete this too, and I will say Doi here. So right now we are actually defining the values of these arguments over here. So these are not default parameters anymore. These are not default arguments anymore. These are right now the kind of like non-default or keyword arguments. So if we run this right now, you will see that it will not print out any error, John, and it's also printing out the value Jane, and it's also printing out the value Doi. What's happening over here is that whenever we are defining it here, we are actually initializing the value which is the default value, and it's saying that whenever we are taking John here, it is passing the value over here for the person1, and this function is not getting the value for person2 and person3 anymore. So it's directly going to the function and looking for the default value Jane and Doi. So it's finding the default value here and printing out the default value. You can see over here. So whenever we actually do something like person2 equal what you can take Michael, and person3 equal Raghu. Right now, let's see what's happened. Let's clear the screen first. Oh, okay, it's saying argument words. Okay, it's person2. Sorry, my bad. clear the screen, run it, and you can see that right now it's printing out John, and in the place of person 2 it's printing out Michael, and over here Raghu into the person 3's place. What's happening here? Why it is not printing out the default value of the defined function? Because when we are calling the function, we are actually telling the value of this person 2 and person 3, and it is actually overriding the values of the default arguments. Take a minute, understand it. First, these are the default values. We are having the function. When we are calling and we are actually initializing two new values for person 2 and person 3, the function is saying that, okay, don't follow the values which has been provided as default value. Rather, we will override the values of the previously defined by these new two defined values. Okay, my bad. And if we run now, as we run before, the values are being overridden. Instead of these two values are being printed out. Right now, we can actually change the position of these two keyword arguments or non-default arguments by doing this, something like that. It will not have any impact on this. You can see that the values remain the same. But you might be like questioning, like, okay, we are actually swapping the position of the arguments, but why it's not actually printing out different values? Because even if we are swapping the position of the arguments, but we are actually defining the variables, right? So that's the reason actually the values are not being swapped out. But if we do something like that right now, what's gonna happen? You can see that the value has been swapped, because all these three values are being taken into a sequence, and it's printing out the values directly for these three arguments. Okay, let's go back. Alright guys, right now we are going to learn about arbitrary values. And arbitrary means something's unlimited. Inside the function definition, arbitrary arguments means that you can take as many arguments as you want. So first, let's take a function which is print arguments, and we are gonna give colon first, and we are gonna first take a argument which is character 1. So this is a positional argument, so we want to take as many positional argument as you want. To do this, we will say asterisk, and we will say character 2. So we are allowing our function right now to take as many positional arguments as you want. Right now we want to take as many keyword arguments as you want. I hope that you guys know about positional and keyword arguments. If you don't know, just go back to the previous tutorials, you will have them there. Right now, for taking the keyword arguments, we will say double asterisk symbol, and we will say character 3. And this will allow us to take as many keyword arguments as possible here. So we will first print out the value of character 1, and we will actually call the function print arguments, and we will put a value, a single value only. So I will say A. So these two right now over here are actually optional. These two don't need to be implemented into the called function. And if we run now, you can see that it's printing out the value A here. Right now, we want to actually play with the the positional and the keyword arguments. To do this, we will take another positional argument, which is V right now. And you will see that it will be actually not throwing an error, but we are taking another positional arguments. So for this positional arguments, it is actually going through these parameters. But for this positional arguments, this will actually going through this parameter. We will take several more. See. So these two positional arguments are going through this parameter. How to know this? To know this, we will say for chr in character 2 print chr. So we are actually telling that the function that whatever values comes inside this character to print it out here. Let's run it, and you can see that A, B, C. So B, C are printed out. So you can see simply that character 2 over here. Right now we want to take keyword arguments. So I want to say something like what should we be saying? num1, and we will say num1 equal 1, num2 equal 2. I think that should be enough. So to print out this one, I will say for, since it is inside the chr3, all of the keyword arguments will be passing through this. We'll say chr3, you can take anything as you want, in character 3. So we are saying print chr3, and we will take something like colon here. Don't worry, I will explain it here. And we'll say character 3, and we will say chr3. Okay, so we are actually telling, within this loop, we are actually telling that whatever comes through this character 3 keyword arguments, just print them all out. And if you run now, you can see that it's printing out num1 equals 1, num2 equals true, 2, and all of the positional arguments before. So what's happening here? When we are taking actually chr3 into character 3, chr3 is the variable, because these are into this format, right? Variable format and the value format. The variable format and the value format. So when we are saying the chr3 itself is a variable, and whenever we are putting the value that, okay, printing out the value for this variable, that time we are actually saying 1 and 2. So this is responsible for printing out the values 1 and 2, and this is responsible for printing out the value, this one, num1 and num2. So this is quite simple. You can actually ignore this simply, and if you're printing out now, it will only just print out the value right now. See, let's run now. So you can see that it's printing out A, B, C, and 1 and 2. So it is only printing out the values. You can actually change this argument, the keyword arguments, num1 over here, and you can swap it here, change the place. But you can't put a positional argument over here, something like that. If you are doing this, it will throw an error. You can see that positional argument follows keyword argument. So that's all about this tutorial. I hope that you guys understand it. If you don't understand, comment into the comment section. I will try my best to help you out. Also, just give any feedback if you are having. I will try my best to improve the course. See you into the next tutorial. Bye bye.